Hello, and welcome to Trans Truth, the podcast dedicated to dispelling myths, fear, and ignorance about transgender people. Along the way, we'll be sharing items of interest to the transgender community, from political and news events to health, fashion, and beauty. And now, let's have a look at some news items that should be of interest to our listeners. Hello, and welcome back to Trans Truth. As we record this, we're in the final weekend of Pride Month. So our news segment in this episode will feature more than our usual amount of editorial comments, so fair warning, listeners. Aunt Kelly is a-fixin' to rant on y'all. But first, in a recent article with an excellent video attached, CBS News has reported on gender-affirming care for trans youth, separating medical facts from misinformation. I would have said fact from fiction, or at least facts from disinformation, but semantics aside, I cannot recommend this report more highly. It shows the stark divide between what virtually all of the experts in the field have been saying and the breathless, oh my God, pearl-clutching fear-mongering by those who have been spewing disinformation and outright lies for political gain. And make no mistake, it is all about politics. As we documented in Episode 7 of Trans Truth, that campaign of disinformation and lies is part of a national strategy by the Republican Party and other right-wing conservative hate groups to demonize the transgender community. Again, check out that CBS News report. The link, along with all of the other story headlines, is in the episode notes at www.transtruth.info. Speaking of politicians telling lies, here it comes. The Guardian reports on the lies and hateful rhetoric that was aired at the Faith and Freedom Coalition's annual Road to Majority Policy Conference this past weekend. We'll note in passing the exquisite irony of a group so fond of referring to themselves as patriots taking a public dump on the U.S. Constitution and invoking religious authority to make laws and govern our nation. The framers of the Constitution knew what they were doing when they excluded any mention of divine authority from the document that would define their new nation's system of law and government. The Constitution of the United States was the first of its kind, an earthly authority that abandoned the divine right of kings. But I digress. At the Road to Majority Policy event, Missouri Senator Josh Hawley addressed a crowd that numbered in the hundreds. Wow. Describing the challenge as, quote, a new Marxism that is rising in this country, one that tells Americans, among other things, that there's no such thing as male and female, that there are not two genders. There's 2,000 genders, and it tells our children that the way God made them is wrong. These new Marxists want to give America a new religion. They want to impose on us the religion of woke. It is the religion of transgenderism, critical race theory, open borders, and multiculturalism. They are shoving it down our throats, unquote. Let's see. New Marxism, check. Religion of woke, check. Telling our children God is wrong, check. Critical race theory, check. And open borders, check. All the things that the Republicans want their fearful and ignorant base to be afraid of this year. And it appears to be working. According to the article, a recent Gallup poll shows the approval rating for same-sex relations at 64%, down from 71% just 1 year ago. Yes, Gallup's understanding of the difference between transgender issues and same-sex relations is non-existent, a sadly common fact about pollsters in general, and one which we've recently addressed. Anyway, who says the Republicans don't learn from history? It's just too bad they've looked to Joseph Goebbels for inspiration and guidance. Yes, we're proving Godwin's law by bringing Nazi history into the argument. But there's no denying that the way the GOP has wielded Goebbels' playbook has been remarkably effective at shaping public opinion. Unfortunately, the effect of that shaping is unsettlingly similar to the events in 1930s Germany. We continue to see a rise in violence against the LGBTQ community. In a report by ABC News, they report on the guilty pleas being made by the Club Q shooter. On November 22nd of last year, Anderson Lee Aldrich walked into the Club Q nightclub in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and started shooting. Before the club patrons subdued him, Aldrich had killed Daniel Davis Aston, Kelly Loving, Derek Rump, Ashley Poe, and Raymond Green Vance. He injured 19 others. He recently pleaded guilty to 5 counts of murder in the first degree, 46 counts of attempted murder in the first degree. He also pleaded no contest to 2 counts of bias-related crimes, hate crimes, in other words. Investigators said that Aldrich administered and ran a website that hosted a neo-Nazi white supremacist shooting training video. His defense attorneys insisted that this was not a hate crime and tried to assert that Aldrich was mentally ill, an excuse that Republicans are quite fond of making for mass shooters. Fine, so stipulated. He was mentally ill. So how is it okay to publicly and incessantly reinforce the deranged view that certain groups of people do not deserve to live? Propaganda at work. Not all of the effects of the right's campaign of fear-mongering are so dramatic. They are, however, far more widespread. After decades of growing support from corporate America for LGBTQ rights, the recent wave of anti-trans propaganda has caused that support to waver. The dust-up about a single can of Bud Light appearing in a video with a trans woman is already old news, as is the coverage over Target's line of trans-affirming clothing. Clothing. You'd think that they were displaying a line of Hail Satan summer clothes. So our next story notes that those two, Bud Light, the most popular beer in America until having the temerity to use a trans woman to sell their product, and Target, a Fortune 100 company, are in good company as they run away from this manufactured controversy. In a story from Fortune magazine shared on Yahoo Finance, columnist Kinsey Crowley tells us how Target and Anheuser-Busch are being joined by many other major brands in losing their backbone in the face of the so-called rage being manufactured by right-wing nuts. She reports that Fortune itself reached out to formerly supportive companies like Amazon, Target, Microsoft, Intuit, and Morgan Stanley. Target did not respond to multiple requests for comment. Microsoft declined to comment. Morgan Stanley did not want to comment on an issue that relates to pending legislation. Legislation, not litigation. I guess that they're afraid of the brown shirts coming for them in the red states for not being good good Americans. Amazon offered only general statements about their dedication to offering benefits that fit employees' needs, but declined to comment on any trans-specific benefits. So cowed have these and many other companies been by the propaganda being issued by hate groups. So cowed have these and many other companies been by the propaganda being issued by hate groups such as the Republican Party. You have to hand it to the GOP, however. They know what buttons to push to get their fearful and ignorant voters motivated to action. To be fair to Fortune, the article under discussion is mostly about one company, that so far has not been cowed by the haters. That company is Intuit, the Fortune 500 software company behind Quicken, QuickBooks, Mint, and TurboTax, to name just a few. The company has held an annual Trans Summit since January of 2020. Two of the organizers of that first event in 2020, Jessica Dark and Scott Beth, both trans employees at Intuit, are now part of the corporation's Trans Advisory Board. The board has had remarkable success in getting the ear of company principals, like CEO Sasan Goodarzi. By June of 2020, less than 6 months later, new benefits for trans and LGBTQ employees had been implemented, including insurance company for the gender-affirming care that some states have already banned. Goodarzi told the 2023 summit audience that Intuit, like many high-profile companies, receives a lot of hateful backlash for their stance. He shared that he receives emails directly from angry people threatening to take their business elsewhere. He does not back down. He does not hide behind no comment. He told the audience, quote, "I respond to every customer, letting them know that this is who we are, this is what we stand for. Perhaps you should change who you are. Good luck using someone else's product." End quote. Yes, when you're the 800-pound gorilla in the personal and small business finance software market, you can afford to be a bit dismissive of the right-wing nut snowflakes. Still, Intuit continues to not just voice their support, to not just see that their employees have the benefits they need. They also put their money and their influence where their mouth is. In 2022, Intuit gave $500,000 to the National Center of Trans Equality. Intuit is a member of America Competes, a coalition of some 40 businesses that are trying to point out that the anti-LGBTQ hate legislation and propaganda campaign are bad for business. We should note that Intuit recently helped Jessica Dark, who had feared for her personal safety, well-being, and future access to health care because she lived and worked in Arizona, by providing relocation benefits that helped her move from the state that was working on legislation to deny her all those things to Connecticut, a blue state that has become something of a destination for transgender people, especially trans kids, who have been the most frequent target of the Republicans' deeply cynical strategy to deny life-saving health care. Let that sink in. An entire class of people, predominantly families with transgender children, have become refugees. Yes, refugees from the effects of the hateful propaganda being spewed by the right. If you don't see the parallels to events in Europe 100 years ago or so, you're simply not paying attention. As we noted in Episode 7, Propaganda Then and Now, on July 14, 1933, Nazi Germany's denaturalization law removed the citizenship of Jews and other undesirables. In 2023, Republican legislation in multiple states will outlaw gender marker changes on birth certificates and other legal documents. The latest of these is Kansas, where the state attorney general is seeking to bar changes to the gender markers on birth certificates. This kind of thing is prima facie evidence that the right intends to carry out their stated goal of eliminating transgenderism from public life entirely. No, nobody is talking about ovens or gas chambers yet. But they were not talking about that in 1934 Germany either. TMZ has reported that Lance Armstrong is ruffling feathers by weighing in on the fairness of trans women competing against cis women. Said Armstrong, "Have we really come to a time and place where spirited debate is not only frowned upon, but feared?" We say, "No, Lance. The only things we're frowning on are your ignorance and oversimplification of a complex subject, and the fact that you, a legendary cheater in the field of athletic competition, should open your mouth about fairness." I could go on all day, but we've got other content to get to, so I'll wrap up with a pretty cool story out of New Jersey. The New Jersey State Senate has confirmed its first transgender cabinet official. Last Tuesday, the Senate voted 37-0 to confirm Allison Myers as chair and CEO of the New Jersey Civil Service Commission. Said Myers, "I know I'm up for this challenge, and I appreciate being considered for this opportunity." Of that, we have no doubt, Ms. Myers. Congratulations. As always, links to the stories and other related sites in this episode are available in the episode notes on our website. We'll be right back after this brief word from our sponsors. Hello again and welcome to Trans Truth. We are doing our very first remote podcast. As promised, we are here at the Houston Trans Pride celebration presented by the Monica Roberts Resource Center. I've said it before, if you're one of the 2 or 3 people who don't know who Monica was, before we lost her a few years ago, she was one of the world's most influential, kind of understates it, impressive, dedicated, passionate trans activists. She was a force. If you ever met her, you know what I'm talking about when I say you definitely knew when Monica was in the room. Anyway, we are at the Social Beer Garden, and there is going to be a show hosted by Kenya Gallardo. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name correctly. She stopped by and said hi and promised she'd come by and have a few words with us a little bit later. We're privileged to be here and happy to support this event. The proceeds go to the Monica Roberts Resource Center. They provide support of all kinds to trans people in need. So we will be right back after this brief message. There, and I think we're back. Can you hear me, Austin? Yeah, you're going to have to work that mic a little bit harder. just now. Yep. Yeah,
sure.
We're working against the live acts right now. But Austin stopped by to talk a little bit, find out about Trans Truth, and you were telling me something about the outpouring of public attention you're seeing in your business for the trans community.
Well, I had a specific question and an issue that I'd like to talk to you about that comes up. Are we still good to talk? Okay. So I have a lot of different people that I talk with this about that surprisingly keeps coming up and keeps coming up. My friends run the gamut from Democrat to Republican, 15 to 85. And the question that keeps coming up is people say, I want to be a trans ally. I don't. The next question is, what do you think about conversion before the age of 18? And everyone arrives at the same sort of question of, do we know medically if it's safe for the development of that person to do it before a certain time? And I've had some people say, I feel like me even questioning that sounds transphobic. And they're like, but I am curious because I care about the health of the individual. What would you say to them?
Well, we addressed the notion that minor trans patients should wait until they're 18 on a regular basis. There's absolutely no truth to that. In fact, evidence-based gender-affirming care provided to patients that are properly diagnosed will help with their mental health, their well-being. It will cut the suicide rate, which is tragically high in that population, in half or better. 85% of trans youth have either thought about, attempted, or successfully committed suicide. 80-some%. So getting them the treatment that they need is important. Nobody does surgery on minors, with some rare exceptions, and I'll talk about that in a second. Nobody gives prepubescent kids puberty blockers. It's only when they start to approach puberty that puberty blockers are prescribed. It's not experimental. Puberty blockers have been used to treat things like precocious puberty for decades. So there's nothing new there. And then once the child has reached adolescence and is able to make an informed decision in concert with their parents, then sometimes cross-sex hormones are prescribed.
I have a question for you. I feel like it could be such a win for the trans community and the LGBT community alike. How far away do you think we are from having a person of medical authority like the CDC or Fauci or someone informing the nation and educating them on this?
Well, we already have that. To be honest, I don't think they've been vocal enough. But the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Psychological Association, and the American Psychiatric Association are all very clear that evidence-based, gender-affirming care is the appropriate treatment for people that suffer from gender dysphoria.
How do you think we could get that news out to the world for them to hear it more?
You know, we've been asking that question, and unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for that. I am very gratified to see in the last week or two at least 3 federal court decisions striking down either temporarily or, in the case of Arkansas, permanently those states' bans on gender-affirming care for minor patients. So the courts are listening to the smart people. So I guess that's the way it's going to have to happen.
Where do you think this fear of this transphobia comes from in a person?
We actually have done an episode or 2 on that, and it's a very good question. You know, we asked that, and it boils down to fear and ignorance. Now, we're a tiny portion of the population. Depending on who you talk to, we're between 1/2 and 2% of the
that's small. I figured it would have been much larger.
The growth is coming from the younger generations who are not intimidated and staying in the closet until they're well into adulthood. Kids it's just easier for them. So I think that's where we're seeing the growth. It's also what's generating the panic. You know, it's there. We've been accused of indoctrinating or a campaign to recruit kids to be trans. Nothing could be further from the truth, of course, but that's what it looks like if you're uneducated about it. People just don't understand, and what people don't understand, they often fear. And then, of course, there's a group who will exploit that fear for political ends, and that's what we've been seeing for the last 2 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, tell me how you got involved. You're obviously well informed on the subject. What brings you to a trans pride event?
I would never claim to be well informed. I feel in many ways as a gay man that I have not done more for the trans community, and I haven't proactively tried to educate myself more. I feel like that should be our responsibility as gay men to be there. And but you know, having conversations like this is so wonderful, and being able to connect with people and talk about the nitty-gritty issues like we just talked about, you know, because I think people are like, well, do you support trans people? I'm like, there's so much more. That's not really the question, you know?
Yeah, I am so gratified to hear you say that as a gay man, that the LGBT community kind of hasn't done enough to support the trans community.
I have a story on this. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm a real estate agent, and I have a trans agent in Arizona that I do a lot of business. We send business back and forth to each other, and I've had trans sellers and trans buyers throughout the years, and the fear of moving into a neighborhood that might not be accepting is intense. And according to ethics, we're not allowed to say one thing or the other, you know? And I've always found issue with that code of ethics where if you know an area is not going to be safe for somebody, I feel like we should be allowed legally to tell them that I'd be like, I love this neighborhood, but I worry about your personal safety here.
And there's no ethical way around that?
It's called steering or blockbusting.
Right.
And the intention of it was the opposite, to protect people from being racist, which, of course, unfortunately a perennial issue. So, sorry, I got a little off track.
That's
here.
all right.
What were we talking about? Becoming more informed.
Being more informed. Yeah, I feel like...
I have a great question for this. What would you like to say to gay men in general that you feel like they need to hear and they're not hearing you?
I wish my co-host were here, Jerry Ann. She's... this is one of her personal crusades. Is to get the LGBT community to understand us better. We're grateful for all of the support and for the allies, but her experience.
Where are we failing?
It's the same kind of lack of understanding that the public in general doesn't appreciate. She at the church that she used to attend, she in the after church socials, felt like she was always entertaining questions about what bathroom do you use, or people that just equated her being trans to the drag queens they know.
An object of curiosity, not a person.
Yeah, they don't understand the difference. She will tell you she just wants to get on with life. In fact, tonight she's not here because she's at a meeting with her rodeo committee. She's been a volunteer for the last 5 years with the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo.
Would you say that her issues, she wants to be seen as a person and not a curiosity?
Right, exactly. And not equated with drag queens. We both will tell you that we appreciate that drag queens are hard-working performers and talented performers.
I'm going to be honest, I can't believe you're still having to have that conversation in 2023. I thought everybody knew the difference between being trans and being a drag queen.
More don't than do. Yeah.
Oh, that's incredibly depressing to hear.
And to be fair, and we just talked about this on our show last week, the media is largely responsible for it. When you see coverage of a pride event, the pride parades, or whatever it is, what do you see? Two things: the leather boys and the drag queens.
And the dykes on bikes.
Yeah, and the dykes on bikes. Exactly. Yeah. That's the stock footage they roll every time they do a story on the LGBT community. And there's no talk of trans people and how they're different and how they're just men and women. It's, so we fight against that.
That's so interesting. I do have one last question for you if we're still okay. I know I'm talking a lot.
Oh, no problem. I feel like I'm being interviewed.
So in Native American culture, I know they always talk about the two-spirit identity, and a friend of mine who's Hindu said they have 5 different genders. It's stuff that's been around for thousands and thousands of years. I'm curious with your masculine, on a spiritual level, your spirit of masculinity, your spirit of femininity, do you feel one spirit stronger than another? Do you feel like a blend? Is this too weird of a question to ask?
No, I think it's a fair question, and I can only answer for myself.
Yes. Well, obviously, it would be individual to every single person. Yeah.
I've never seen the dichotomy, and that was a problem for me for a long time. Coming to grips with my feminine spirit, if you will. I didn't feel like I'm living in the wrong body, which you hear so much, but when I was finally able to come to grips with it, I'm feminine. I enjoy feminine things. My thoughts that way. I enjoy the company of women, as women do. So.
What do you think caused that shift from your masculine spiritual leanings to the feminine? What do you think shifted
Therapy.
that? Oh, therapy, interesting.
Yeah,
that unlocks some doors.
I knew I had to deal with it. I knew I was suffering from gender dysphoria, and and some other things, PTSD, that kind of thing. So I sought out a qualified therapist, that had experience with gender issues, and it took about 6 months before before she asked the right questions that helped her understand what was going on in my head. And I remember distinctly talking about the women in my life who have always been my role model. I don't have male heroes. I don't have male role models. I've always been into motorsports. So the few successful female professional auto racers have always been role models for me. I was a medic in the Army a long time ago, and probably half of the women I worked with were Vietnam veteran nurses and medical specialists. And I identified with them, and I'm rambling on like that to my therapist, and she starts grinning, and she just looks at me. I said, "What?" And she said, "You identify with them." And, that was the breakthrough moment.
And when in that moment where you come to grips with yourself and you say, I have gender dysphoria, I am a woman. When you have that moment happen, what is the emotions? Is it fear? Is it disdain for yourself? Is it excitement for moving on?
Yeah, it's a little bit of all of those things, but mostly it was relief. On some level, I knew it was coming. I knew I had to say that word in reference to myself. I'm a transsexual, but...
You felt relief.
Yeah, relief.
When I just realized I was gay, I felt failure. I felt like I had failed at being a man, right? Which, how fucked up is that, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
But that's the environments we grew up in.
Sure.
And it's so interesting in your moment, relief.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And I've got lots of trans friends over the years as I've become more active here in Houston. One of the people I became acquainted with was she's now retired, Judge Phyllis Fry. I don't know if that name rings a bell, but
I'm from Austin.
Yeah, she was the first openly transgender judge in the United States. She was. I think a municipal judge here in Houston.
What was her name?
Phyllis Fry. You Google that name and find the Newsweek article about her. When she was a legal intern working in the Houston City Attorney's Office, she managed to get the anti-masquerade law overturned. Yeah, it was a holdover.
Euphemistic creative name.
No, it was created during the era of the Klan, and it was intended to keep the Klan from wearing their costumes, their sheets and masks.
Oh
but
my God,
it had
really?
Yeah, but in the years since, it had been used to harass and prosecute trans women.
Well, that did a 180, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. So anyway, Phyllis's comment and I've heard her say it, in half a dozen public appearances. If you're thinking about it, do it. You will be happier. And that's a big lift. Because transitioning, coming out to family and friends. Has an impact. It's going to have an impact on career more often than not. But that's the best advice I've ever heard.
This has been a really wonderful chat. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Austin, thank you so much for stopping by. All right.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, we're going to be back in a little bit. We're going to take in some more of this entertainment. We're going to talk to Jamal. I think that's his name, the organizer here from Monica Roberts Resource Center. And we'll also be chatting with Kenya, the Mistress of Ceremony. So we'll be back in just a few. We are here with the organizer of the Houston Trans Pride event. Please introduce yourself.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. My name is Javon Martin, and I am the founder and executive director of the Monica Roberts Resource Center. And this event, Houston Trans Pride, this is our second annual, and it was amazing.
Tell us, tell us how you came to be here. You told the crowd here a little bit earlier how you came from another city, felt like you had slain all the dragons there and decided to wade into Texas. Tell us about that.
Oh, yes. So in New York City, I was a part of Passing Gender, and I was also a part of Marriage Equality. And so Monica Roberts, she loved me and she nurtured me, and she was like the epitome of advocacy and activism for me. And so I followed in her footsteps, and she often wrote about me in her blog, Transgrio, and she just gave me the space to support trans women and to support our community. And I came here to Houston to do that because New York is doing great. New York is spot on. They have all services, and you know, there's no negativity in New York. So I came here to step on some heads, right?
Yeah.
Let's get it going, because our rights are human rights. They're just regular human rights that we deserve. There's nothing new. There's nothing extra. We're not trying to erase anyone. We just want to live authentically as ourselves.
Yeah, liberty and justice for all means
That's what it's supposed
all,
to be.
y'all.
All, right? Y'all. Yes. Coming from New York, y'all.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think the higher power in Texas sees us as a threat. So in order to get rid of us, they have to divide and conquer. And that's what they're doing. They're picking the LGBT community apart and dealing with piece by piece by piece, and they are trying to bring us down. But what they don't know is that they cannot bring down the trans community.
That is right. I will have to take an issue with their motivation, what you see as their motivation. I'm more cynical than that. I think this is a calculated political move to motivate their base. They don't have the Marriage Equality Act. They lost that one. And we've documented this on previous episodes of Trans Truth. There are national conservative organizations that that have identified that need. They need something else to motivate their base to get out the vote, because they know they can't win it with any other way.
Exactly.
So, and there are some journals out there that have done the research and show that even the language in the bills from state to state is almost identical. So, yeah, the things they've been doing in the last 2 years, especially cynically claiming to protect trans kids, yeah, it's the exact opposite. And
Exactly.
Yeah, I was talking to a gentleman just a few minutes ago. We're starting to see the court cases come up and challenge those laws, and the courts are paying attention to the actual experts, to the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Psychological Association, and telling the state attorney generals, what were you thinking? Your argument does not hold water. The experts all agree.
Exactly, as they should listen, right?
Yeah.
To people that have PhDs, right?
Yeah.
But they're like, oh no, that's not how it works. But instead of them paying attention to things that we need, like schooling, the grid, and just things that matter,
Right.
They're worried about our body. Like, we have agency over our own body, but they're taking that away from us.
Yeah.
Right? And so we, the people, need to step up and let them know that we don't want them in office. We don't want their negativity over our lives, because our lives matter just as much as theirs.
We both knew Monica Roberts.
Yes.
I worked with her on a number of projects. My co-host and I, who's not here tonight, we're both board members for the Texans Transgender Non-Discrimination Summit. and she helped us out a lot. We helped her. Anyway, tell our listeners how they can get involved, how they can honor Monica's legacy and become an activist. You don't have to be a sign-carrying, parader. You don't. There are things you can do. Tell us about that.
Yes, so we need people in the background, right? We need people on the board. We're still building our board. We're still building this organization. So if anyone knows about social media, we need help building our website, building our social media presence. We need photographers to be at our events. We need anyone that wants to help community thrive, right? Because that's what we're about. We're about helping our own thrive and succeed, right? This is about elevation, just living. That's all we want to do. We just want to live, right? So if anyone would like to reach out, they can reach out and call us at 713-930-8670, or they can email monieslegacy@gmail.com, or they can see us on the Monica Roberts Resource Center page.com and drop us a message.
Yeah, we will be sure to put that information in the episode notes, and so it'll show up on our website. When people listen to this, they'll be able to go right there, click the link, and get involved.
Yes. That's the way that we are going to survive and thrive, is by people getting involved. And get mad, get upset, because if you're not upset, then you're a part of the problem.
Yeah,
because they're coming for us. And guess what? After they come for us, they're coming for you too.
I would not be surprised. Listen, take one of our cards there. Keep us in mind. When we can do anything to help the cause, get in touch.
Well, we would love to have you at all of our events that we have, if that's possible.
More often than not, that will be the case.
Yeah.
Like I said, my co-host wasn't able to make it tonight. She is, she's one of those people that just wants to do life, that just wants to get on. And tonight she's having a meeting with her rodeo committee. Yeah, she's currently an assistant captain on the ticket services committee for the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. Yes, wow. She is the first, as far as we know, ever trans woman to be involved as one of the 35,000 volunteers that put on the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo.
Well, I have never been, and I would like to go.
Oh, well, we're going to hook you up.
There we go. I like a good hookup. Thank you so much.
All right, thank
you for being here.
Thanks for talking with us. All right, on with the show.
Yes.
Thank you. That was great. Okay. Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Alec, and I'm a trans man, 31, I'm originally from Louisiana, but I live in Houston now.
So, Alec with a C, right?
Yes.
I overheard that conversation earlier. Alec, I just buttonholed out of the crowd and said, come over and talk to us. Tell us why you're here.
I'm here because I want to benefit the Monica Roberts Resource Center and also support my friends in getting awards and stuff. I'm not that active in the community, but I would like to be because I very much support Javon's message of supporting ourselves and not depending on, say, I don't know, big daddy government to support us, because obviously that's
ain't gonna
not
happen.
working.
Yeah. Not in this state anyway.
Yeah. So I very much believe in Javon's message of learning to support ourselves. Like, I'm a very big advocate of self-defense, for example. I train jiu-jitsu personally. But also, I'm also concerned about some stuff trans-masculine people go through that isn't talked about enough. Because, like, rightly so, we focus on trans women's problems because they get the most lethal violence.
True.
So they're rightly focused on, but while we don't face as much lethal violence, we face a lot of non-lethal violence.
Yeah.
And it's not talked about. So I would like to see that change for us.
Well, I got to say, I'm so gratified to see so many trans men here. To be honest, I think the community has not given the trans men the kind of support they've given trans women. That's changing. At least that's the way I see it. What do you think?
I think it's still taboo for, well, at least in my experience, it's been a couple of years since I've been to a support group that is both trans women and trans men and non-binary. Because whenever I went, it was very taboo for us to even talk about our problems in those groups, because the trans women were saying you shouldn't appropriate the suffering of trans women. Trans men are supposed to sit down and shut up, basically. And so since then, I've only gone to trans men or trans masculine groups and talk about my problems there. But as far as mixed groups with everybody, I don't dare. That's depressing. Yeah, and I honestly, I have to confess to whenever I talk about trans issues, it's trans. Yeah,
women.
because that's your experience.
Part of that is because that's my experience. But I've noticed that the community has ignored the transmasculine part of our community for too long, and like I said, I see it changing, but we have a ways to go yet.
It gives me
just all the hollering is because the Jenga tower finally fell down.
Yes, it gives me a little hope that like it's starting to be talked about. I just hope that in our support groups we can be listened to, because that's the most difference that's gonna make. Because I know we have some visible trans men that helps, but as far as like in our everyday support groups, I think we need more support.
I think activism, Jerry Ann, my co-host, and I have learned that activism is probably most effective when it's elbow to elbow. You know, the publicity, the events like this, the parades, those are all great. They raise awareness. But the thing that buys us goodwill is showing people that we're just people. We're just like them. Yeah, we're a little different. We're unusual, but we're normal.
I'm autistic, and I grew up listening to autism advocate Dr. Temple Grandin, and she said something that I think applies to the trans community as well. And her slogan about people with autism is, we're different, not less. And I like that. I think that could be applied to trans people as well.
She's one of my heroes. I learned about her only after I moved to Texas in the early 2000s. But what a story.
Yes. I love her so much.
Yeah. Did you know Monica Roberts?
Yes, I met her a couple of times. It was a while back. So whenever I first came out, I was more active in the community, and then I stopped for a little while because I don't know, I just felt a hostility towards trans men in general, because I just told you what I went through.
Sure.
So I became less active, and I started talking to people more one-on-one, as opposed to like in the activist scene where it can be very cliquey at times.
Well, listen, I've enjoyed talking with you. I'd like to do it more.
Sure.
If you're willing, we'd like, we're doing a series. We're just getting ready to launch it on trans stories.
Sure.
Where each episode we're just interviewing one person to have us tell their story, because it's that elbow-to-elbow familiarity that we're after. So.
Oh, okay. I'd be honored to do it.
Okay. Grab a card there, and that way you can get in touch with us whenever you're ready. Drop us a line, and we'll figure out how to get together.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks again. Well, we're back, and I am here with tonight's MC. Introduce yourself, please.
Hi, thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Kenia Gallardo. I am an immigrant from Mexico. My pronouns are she, and I am very happy to be here.
Well, we are happy to have you here. How did you come to be the MC? How did you get hooked up with the Monica Roberts Center?
Yeah, that's not a long story because actually this is our second time having the event, Trans Pride Houston. This is our second year, and I am honored to be the host for the second year. So it happens for me to meet with Javon and another trans people activists in the city. So they invite me, and then I guess they like me as much as I would like them.
You do a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah. So are you involved in the Monica Roberts Center in any way other than just being our MC tonight?
Well, tonight I was the MC, but I've been working and collaborating with them for 2 years.
Oh, good.
Yeah. They've been working so hard, and I just been working with them in the past 2 years.
That's great. Did you know Monica?
I never had the chance to meet her, no.
She was, like I've been telling people, I've worked with her. I had worked with her on a few projects, and she was a force all her own. You definitely knew when Monica was in the room. Let me tell you what.
I heard good things about her, and especially the work that she did for our trans community, for the Black trans community, for the people of color. She's been such an inspiration for a lot of us. So after she passed, and this organization, a lot of people have been working on her name on regard of her work. So
yep.
I never had the chance to meet her, but I know for a fact that she was doing so good for all of us.
Yeah, Monica singled with her blog, Transgrio, probably more than any other single person, brought the issue of homicide against trans women of color to the national conscience. And that's for a population as small as us, that's no small feat. But like I said, she was a force all her own, so I'm not surprised. Anyway, I'm like you, I'm proud to be here helping out and contribute what we can to the Monica Roberts Resource Center.
Yeah, of course.
Tell it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's been a really, really hard time for the trans community, not only in Houston and Texas and the United States and across the world. And she's definitely one of the people who has worked and raised their voice for all the trans people, and especially for Black people, Black trans people, people of color. Monica, she's always been there. She's always been working for us. And like I said, I never met her, but I know her legacy. And that's why when I heard about the Monica Roberts Center, I wanted to get involved and put a little bit of my work, to help others.
Well, let's talk about you. I really enjoyed your show.
Thank you.
I'm guessing you do other performances. You want to tell us, plug your upcoming appearances?
Well, I've been doing the show for a couple of years now. I'm more active on the social work now, but I still working on the shows once in a while. So.
Okay. Is there a website or a social media page where people could find you, find out about you?
They can always find me on Instagram, Facebook, or Snapchat, TikTok as Kenia Gallardo. Yeah.
Okay. We will make sure that links to those sites make it to the episode notes that goes with our podcast. Kenya, thank you so much for talking with us.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. Thank you to the podcast for having a platform for all of us to speak out our issues, our problematics, and especially now, like I said, in these hard times when we have like so many anti-trans bills against the trans community.
Yes.
It's so good to have a space like this. Thank you very much for that.
Well, we try.
Thank you. I'm here to support and to help you in anything you need.
All right. Well, we'll be in touch, I hope.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Kenya. Well, I think that is going to wrap it up. The party is in a brief lull, but it is early, so I'm sure it's going to get going and it's going to get louder. So we will sign off for now. Thanks for joining us. You have been listening to Trans Truth. the podcast that speaks the truth about what it means to be transgender. If you are transgender yourself, you have a friend or loved one who is transgender, or if you are simply looking to understand more about the transgender experience, we hope that you have found this episode to be informative and enlightening. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to contact us at info@transtruth.info. Copyright 2023 Trans Truth.